Hello, welcome back to the MooseVan. Today we have a special guest. This is my wife, Susan. She's been behind the scenes a lot in much of the build to date, and now it's time to, what?
I'm the brains behind the operation, let's just be clear.
So we just got back from Colorado. It was our first long trip in the van, and we spent about, how many nights?
4 nights.
So 4 nights camping in the van on the way there and on the way back. So we were able to put it through its paces and have some good idea about what worked and what didn't work. So what we'll do in this video is show you a little bit about our trip, and then we'll get right into what worked and what didn't work.
Yep.
Okay, stay tuned. All right. It's Friday morning. Today is the day we leave. So we're not leaving until after 5 p.m. I do have to work, and I can't work on the road. I do get motion sickness, so there's no way for me to, even as a passenger, I can't do it. So we leave after 5. We're only going to get 4 hours tonight, but that 4 hours is a huge benefit to us. Otherwise, it's 2 really long, grueling days of driving that are just painful. So take the edge off a little bit with 4 hours tonight, good to go. So what we got to do this morning is all of our pre-flight checks. That includes tires, windows, mirrors, you know, things like that you would normally do for a road trip, no matter what vehicle you're in. And inside the driver's door, we can see the sticker. The front should be 65 psi and the back 73. Next, while I'm working all day, I'm going to go ahead and get the refrigerator up to temperature. And I'm not going to do that on the built-in battery. We're here, I can plug it in. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this plugged in. So all day long, it's going to charge the battery as well as bring the fridge up to temp. The refrigerator is plugged into this power strip here, making it easy for me to get in here and do this. Okay, now it's on house power. Yesterday I went ahead and charged up the house battery. The little Yeti that I have. Same thing, it plugs in right here on this power strip, so easy enough to just park the van in a driveway, pull the extension cord out, power it up. It's 100%. We're going to get the refrigerator 100% and up to temperature, and yeah, we're getting close.
Maiden voyage. Let's go. Come on. Good puppies. Good puppies. Here we go. Critter, stay. Stay. Come on, buddy. Oh God, what do we have?
Oh, hey! Of course, Fritter had to be difficult, but he had to get that one last run in before being cooped up in the van for a few days. We stopped for lunch at a visitor center of sorts, and here's the restroom. Take you in there. Okay. And no lock on the door. Now do you know why I built the toilet room? And while we're stopped, we want to go ahead and get our dinner going. So we've got the rice cooker here, and we've got that plugged in, the inverter's on, and this will be ready in about 4 or 5 hours. While Fritter finishes Maisel's breakfast, she was done with it anyway. And yes, that is almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit. This is our second night out on the road. We stayed in Brady, Nebraska at an old train depot turned into a vineyard and winery. Much better than the night before. We just stayed in a parking lot close to an interstate. And even though we heard some train whistles way off in the distance, it was a very nice, peaceful evening, and we enjoyed this location. Well, we made it. We're headed up the hill. You can see the town of Silverthorne below as we're coming around this corner. We've arrived just a few days before peak fall colors. Look at all those aspen trees, deep, vibrant yellows and golds. As we're getting settling in, of course, the dogs need to get out, stretch their legs. And from our balcony, you can see Lake Dillon over there, and Keystone and Arapahoe Basin, Loveland Pass. And now coming around the top here, you've got Peak 1 and Breckenridge. And it was such a nice day, we decided to go ahead and get the dogs out and take them for a hike up Buffalo Mountain. Colorado is very dog friendly. This is one of our favorite restaurants in Frisco, which is not far from Breckenridge, about 25 minutes from the Modern Moose. Next, we're going to head up into the mountains to Kenosha Pass. Kenosha Pass is at 10,000 feet, and it is one of the best places to park and experience the changing aspen leaves, as well as do some hiking. Not only a great destination, but the drive to Kenosha Pass and then from Kenosha Pass, just incredible. And as we get back on our way, Fritter resumes his favorite spot as co-pilot as we head down the mountain. Here's the Platte River run along Highway 285, and we're coming into Bailey here pretty shortly. Yep, Bailey, Colorado. Not much to see here, very small town, except for one weird thing, and there it is. Yeah, that's a big hot dog. And when we're traveling, we typically like to stop at truck stops. It's because they're easier to get in and out of. There's typically plenty of pumps. They're open 24/7. Even in the middle of the night, they have a staff of 10 or 12 people, so it's a lot safer. It's well lit. Typically a place to walk the dogs. And Love's is one of our favorite places. It's typically nice, modern, clean facilities, and of course, it's lunchtime, and here comes our lunch.
So now we're going to run down the list of what we liked and what we didn't. Starting with the toilet. Now, I have to be honest, full disclosure here. I was horribly uncomfortable with the not of using the toilet in this tiny van. So I will say one thing that worked really well, in my opinion, I don't know about you, was the fans worked great. So if the other person outside the bathroom had on music and just kind of sat there and la la la, it was fine.
I'd say that the strategy of the window open, little fan in the toilet room, and big fan, max air fan, all on operating. It was fine.
Yeah,
Didn't
no
have
problem.
any issues whatsoever.
One side note, if you are using the dry flush toilet, remember to have your extra
Refill
pack on hand, because we forgot ours here in Ohio.
I meant to pack it. It was just such a last minute throw everything in the van and go, as often happens. It just didn't get put into the van. So we didn't get as much mileage out of our dry flush toilet as potentially we would have wanted. So that led to a bit of a situation on the return home. So what we ended up doing, well, no, that's a different situation.
Oh.
So anyway, when we got to Colorado, that particular cartridge was done, and we had to remove that from the van. And we had no other cartridge to put in. So the way back was a little less off-grid camping and more in parking lot close to a restroom type of camping.
Which, is a lot less fun. Public restrooms.
But
no.
we made it work, right? So whatever happens out there on the road, like this,
Right.
we just make do with that situation and adjust. However, if we had the additional refill pack, it would have been better.
But Jim did move ahead in the story a little bit, to be honest. So my other piece of input about this particular toilet, which is lovely, the toilet, not my input, but as the Mylar fills up and seals itself, it gets higher and higher and higher. And I'm sure you've seen that on videos before. But as it went up and up and up, this little peak formed.
We call it the silver peak.
In the middle. So there would have been more room for future deposits. But as you sat down and that peak got closer and closer, my last attempt to use the bathroom was a bit dicey. We'll leave it at that.
It got a little too close for comfort.
Yes.
Now,
no injury,
you
though.
can push that down, carefully.
I don't know.
You don't want to rupture the Mylar, but that's all malleable material. You
didn't try to push it down. I didn't try to push it down. So I think we need further investigation.
Yeah.
We need another trip.
Next time it gets to that point, it's just going to go. We're going to put the new one in. We're going to take at least 2, if not 3 refills with us. And the refills now are biodegradable. So that just changed in the last couple of months for us. So we ordered the new 3-pack, and that's the way we're going to go.
Nice.
Okay. So next, how about the camping locations? On the way there, not on the way back, because on the way back, we just discussed more parking lot than off-grid. But how about the harvest hosts?
Yeah, the first night that we spent was at an Amish market, and it was very quiet, off the beaten path, and I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we came late and left very early, so we didn't get the opportunity to visit the market. But
the second night was better.
Quiet and dark.
The second night was in Brady, Nebraska, and it was an old train depot they converted into a winery. So again, we didn't get there in time for them to be open necessarily. So we didn't get there in time for dinner or for wine or anything else. But again, very nice, peaceful, safe. And it was a great night, I thought.
Yeah, it really was. It was beautiful. Yeah. Lots of stars and very relaxing.
Yeah.
How about
temperature control?
Oh, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
Jim's from Florida. So he doesn't like to be cold.
No.
But turns out neither do I, even though I'm from Ohio.
Right. I would rather be extremely hot and sweaty rather than be even a little bit chilly. But, we make up for that with layers and with adjusting and so on and so forth.
Sleeps in a hat.
Well, I didn't put my long johns on.
Oh, see? So not too bad.
There's that anyway, which I would have worn in Pennsylvania on our last trip if I had them, because I froze on that one.
So bad.
I wish I had my long johns.
I think that in terms of body warmth, we were both fine, as long as nobody was stealing the covers. For us personally, having your face exposed to cold, and if you're in a van that's all metal, and it just radiates cold at you. And so that was winter, pretty uncomfortable.
Right. So we built this thinking it's a 2-season van, no problem. Fall, spring, temperatures are mild, not a big deal.
Yeah.
Temperatures are very mild in our house. But here in the van with no insulation, whatever the temperature is outside, it is the same in here overnight.
Or worse.
Right.
When at the truck stop, when we woke up cold, I opened the door to go out and use the bathroom, and in the rest stop, and it was colder outside than in. Wait, damn it! It was warmer inside than.
Nope.
It was colder in our van
Yes.
than outside in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And that made me very sad.
What about when we stopped in the middle of the day? So we'll stop often for the dogs and for ourselves to get out, stretch our legs. And we stopped in Indiana, and it was 76, 77 degrees outside. How hot was it in the van?
Probably 90.
90.
And there aren't really a ton of windows in here, so it was hot.
Two.
Well,
2 to be exact.
I mean,
right.
There's a lot more metal in this than there is in our car.
Right. So even with the 2 windows open, max air fan on, it was still 90 degrees in here, and that was pretty rough. Right, so because of the metal roof and just the sun beating on it, it just cooked us.
Yeah.
So we can have the AC blasting up front, but by the time you get just a foot or two behind the 2 front seats, it's 90 back here during the day. So while we're driving, if the dogs are back here, that's pretty rough for them.
So
yeah.
Guess what's on our list for our next project? Insulation.
We're doing insulation, right?
All right, what's next?
All right, how about lighting?
I don't know what to really say about lighting. I think we have the 2 lamps that attach to the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Those put out plenty of light, I think.
Yeah, our lighting needs have been minimal.
Right.
But our lighting that we've had in here has also been minimal. I think we can do better.
For sure.
How about the little BougeRV refrigerator?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Mm-hmm.
It kept things nice and cold.
Mm-hmm.
It was easy to access.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy with it. You?
Yeah, good. So we don't need to spend a lot of time on that one. We can move on. That one's a check.
Done.
How about the water supply? This one I was very concerned about because of the foot pump and the small amount of water that comes out. Was that functional enough, or was that something that is just...
I think it was functional enough. The only problem would be that if you want to wash out a dish or something like that, we'll get to this in a minute, but we did make some food along the way. So it's not super convenient for that. I think if we wanted to get serious about washing dishes and reusing some stuff, we'd have to revisit that. But washing hands, splashing water on your face, it worked fine. I mean, the foot pump isn't it? It takes a lot of effort. So before we left, we decided that we would bring our own food along the way instead of stopping for fast food. And I made up some mason jar salads, which we kept in our cooler. That was great. We had those for lunch. And then I made up some chili, some vegetarian 3-bean chili, to cook in the crock pot along the way, except we don't really have a crock pot that's small. We have a rice cooker. So I put the chili assembled in a Ziploc bag in the cooler, and then we dumped it into the crock pot rice cooker and cooked it as we drove. Don't use a rice cooker for this. It's my first piece of advice. What happened?
Well, it dried up the water too quickly, so we had to continually add water and check on it, which is fine if you remember to continually check on it. Otherwise, it'll burn the bottom. But we made out really well with that. It worked out great.
Yeah.
Because we were able to just stop at a rest area at dinner time and have our dinner. That's one of the great things about the van, is that we have all of our stuff, right? We have our clothing, our toothbrushes, our toilet, our food, our dogs, everything contained. So no matter where we are, I'm going to cut all this stuff out. I mean, it's just rambling nonsense. That's how I do it.
Maybe Jim can talk a little bit about how we powered the crock pot, because rice cooker.
We covered that in the electrical video. You didn't watch my electrical video?
Sorry. They're long. I'm busy.
You're not making this one any shorter.
Cut.
How about the layout?
How about it?
So we designed this layout because it was fairly simple and straightforward. It's also one of the most popular layouts of a Class B camper van. So we thought this would be the ideal starter floor plan to see if it worked for us.
Yeah. Our biggest concern was having two mid-sized dogs.
And two people.
And two people. And Jim hates having his space blocked. So I envisioned myself at the sink with two dogs behind me and Jim needing to get to the bed. So I thought it worked out fine.
Yeah, surprisingly well.
There was a lot of room in here.
Yeah. So all along the way of the build, that's been something that we were concerned about. And one of the reasons we built the hallway as wide as possible. And to do that, we had to make the kitchen galley as narrow as possible. Unfortunately, the toilet room has to be the size that it is. We might shave off an inch or two, but we're not going to be able to get away with much more than that. Ideally, the toilet room would actually be in the back of the van, and the hallway would actually be much wider than it is currently. But even as it is, I think it was fine.
Yeah, I do too.
So how did we do that?
How did we do that, honey?
Well, one of the things that we tried to do was not have everybody in the same space at the same time, right? So if there was something going on in the galley, a food prep item or someone brushing their teeth or something going on in here, the other person would not be there. They would be here on the bench or on the swivel seat or in the bed. And so there were very few occasions when everybody was all in the same space. And even when that occurred, it wasn't terrible. What would we do differently?
Not stay in a truck stop by the gas pumps.
Yeah, not stay at the truck stop.
What would we do differently?
One of the things that I would do differently now is I would have put in the floor system. As you may or may not remember, we put in a very temporary floor. It's worked great. I do like it, but it gets dirty fast and I can't sweep it out. So I'd love to be able to sweep every day, because you will need to sweep every day, especially if you have people and dogs going in and out and you're camping and you're walking trails and things like that. It just gets dirty. So we can vacuum this really well here at home with our Dyson, but I can't vacuum this really well when we're traveling.
No.
And trying to sweep this, it just wasn't as effective.
Right.
So we do have this little tiny handheld vacuum, and it only took me 10 minutes to go around and vacuum up all the little places once we got to Colorado and clean it up. So it worked, but it was not as ideal. So I'd love to have a hard surface with insulation on the floor. I would love to have insulation in the walls and ceiling, and better lighting.
Right.
Right. So those are the things that I would do differently.
I agree. But I'd also say if you're not particularly cold sensitive or heat sensitive, then those things don't have to be done. We got the job done with this. It was an amazing trip.
It worked out.
I loved it.
Any of the challenges we've had that we've talked about during this are pretty minimal in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
We survived, we thrived. It actually was fine. I got chilly, we got hot. The truck stop was loud, but otherwise it was fully functional. It did everything we needed it to do and more, and I don't think I could be happier.
Yeah, all on a budget.
How about driving, maneuverability, and things like that?
I thought it was great. It drives a lot like a pickup truck. And the only thing that was difficult for me was if we were on the highway and it was super windy, and you'd end up in these situations where there were maybe 3 semi trucks, 2 beside you, 1 in front of you. There was a lot of airflow coming off of them, and the van was very kind of shaky. Right. So I found that really uncomfortable at first, but we kind of got used to it.
Yeah, we got used to it. I think when we put a little more weight in the van, it'll handle better, Because one of the things with our DIY budget build that we have going on here is it's super lightweight.
But I'll say that once we got to our destination, this was our vehicle. So I took it down to Target and we took it out to dinner and to some hiking places. So it was just so easy to get around where we needed to go.
Yeah. So the other thing I found that I did wrong, probably not wrong so much, but not optimal, is I installed the window blinds upside down. So
Didn't know that.
So you may or may not see I've got the tape on here. As it turns out, the shade is heavier than the bug screen part, and if it's heavier, it's going to fall down, and as it falls down, it rattles. And you know, I don't like the rattles.
Oh, we didn't talk about the rattles. Go on.
We're talking about them now. So, so I've got the tape on here. So this is an easy fix. It's 4 screws. I just flip it around. I just haven't gotten to that yet.
So it's taped so it doesn't rattle.
It's taped so it doesn't rattle.
So rattles, that is something we need to talk about. And from what I hear, this is a big thing in the RV community.
Not just for me.
Not just for Jim. So we had, it wasn't too bad when we first left. Jim's listening, which he does every day, and fixed a couple little things. Fixed a couple little things along the way. But when we were about an hour and a half from our first overnight stop, this horrific rattle started. And noises don't bother me too much, but after hearing this for like the first 40 minutes, I was ready to go through the roof.
So this is what happened. The day before we leave, there's squeaks around the kitchen galley. And we determined that it was the kitchen galley kind of rubbing up against the side of the van. So we just threw some wedges in there and put some caulking around it to hold that wedging in place. And the squeak stopped. So what we didn't realize at the time, but should have, is that by putting those wedges in there, now the galley is no longer square. It's gone from this to this. And when it's gone like that, this being the front that's facing us now, where there used to be a clearance for the drawer that was 1/8 of an inch, now the clearance is no more because it was off, and it didn't show until we got so many hundreds of miles down the road, and then that's when it decided it had had enough, and it punished us. So
we shoved cloths in there. Jim at one point tore up a paper plate and shoved that in there. And Jim had this epiphany that, you know what? I'll take the thing out of the drawer.
Just take the drawer. Just took the whole drawer out. I mean, could we have done that hours previously?
Yes, it would have saved us some.
So all in all, very happy with the van, and very happy with our first voyage. And I'm looking forward to many more to come.
Yeah, can't wait.
All right, see you next time.
Bye.
How'd we do? Was it good enough?
You were great. How was I?
Perfect.